My dad said he wanted it, so I gave it to him. A jolt of electricity shot through my entire body, sharp and sudden, as if I had grabbed a live wire. My throat burned like fire, tightening so much that I couldn't force out a single word. My heart pounded so hard that the sound echoed in my ears, drowning out everything else. My breathing grew shallow, my chest rising and falling in quick, uneven gasps. It felt as though my blood was boiling, the heat of my rage spreading through every inch of my body. And yet my mind remained eerily calm, and before I even realized it, the words slipped out. Divorce. I can't do this anymore, Paul. I've been through so much, endured things no one should have to, and I forgave every single time. But this is where I draw the line. You crossed the one boundary you never should have. That's all there is to it. I turned my back on Paul, not hesitating for a second. The last thing I saw was Paul's face, frozen in utter shock, like a deer caught in headlights. But then a desperate voice rang out behind me. Corinne, wait! Please, I messed up, I know I did. Just don't leave. Paul grabbed my arm, his eyes filled with panic, his entire body shaking as he begged. The truth was, Paul was... My name is Corinne Bennett. I had just turned 40, a wife, a mother, and, until this moment, a woman who believed in holding things together. Sure, we argued over little things now and then, but I never thought it would come to this. Thinking back, it wasn't one big thing. It was the small things that added up, piece by piece. For example, Paul, can you stop leaving your dirty socks all over the place? I yelled, exasperated, while Paul scratched his head and sauntered over, looking thoroughly annoyed. Jesus, Corinne, can you not? I'm exhausted from work. Just pick them up yourself if it bothers you so much. That was how it always ended, with him snapping at me, dismissing my frustration, leaving a toxic silence hanging between us. Paul and I had gotten married when we were both just 20 years old. We had both entered the workforce right after high school and met each other through a mutual friend. By our third year working, we were making just enough to feel like we were getting by, a little more comfortable than when we had started. While our classmates were off enjoying their college years, we chose marriage instead, convinced we were making the right decision. Looking back, that may have been our first mistake. 6 months into our marriage, Paul dropped a bombshell on me. I never told you this before, but I'm divorced, and I have a kid. It took me a moment to process what he had just said. Wait, what? Are you serious? When we filed our marriage license, I hadn't even thought to check the box for previous marriages. I had just assumed, naively, that I was his first wife, just as he was my first husband. If someone doesn't mention a past marriage, wouldn't anyone assume they were in the same boat? When I demanded to know why he was telling me this now, why he had kept this from me, his response made my stomach turn. I've been paying child support, but the thing is, the alimony is about to go up. Those words hit me like a slap to the face. Apparently, Paul had cheated on his first wife, and that's what led to their divorce. Of course, cheating during a marriage means alimony, and he was legally bound to pay. He had been ordered to pay a settlement of nearly $10,000, and he'd been making monthly payments on it ever since. At first, I didn't have the money, so I promised to pay full child support, and my ex agreed to let me pay just a little toward alimony, only $100 a month, for a while. But that deal ends next month. After that, I have to start paying $500 a month. I'm already paying $400 a month in child support, so that brings my total to $900. He said it so casually, but nearly $1,000 a month going to another household? That was a serious financial burden. I couldn't help but feel angry. How the hell do you wait until now to tell me something this important? When I confronted him, he looked guilty but also irritated. Like he was annoyed that I even had an issue with it. Because if I told you, you wouldn't have married me. And I couldn't let that happen. I swear, Corinne, I'll never cheat on you. Please believe me. That wasn't the issue. Whether or not he cheated again wasn't the point. At least, not right now. Some people never cheat, and some people swear they never would, until they do. And what was I supposed to do with his promise? Applaud him for basic decency? The real issue was the money. Back then, we were just 20. 3 years into the workforce with only high school diplomas, our paychecks weren't exactly impressive. We were far from well off. I had been putting away a little bit of money each month, but Paul, he had nothing. At first, I thought he was just bad at saving, but now I understood. He never had a chance to save anything. It all went to his ex and their kid. I laid down my terms, my voice firm. Listen, the alimony and child support, that's your responsibility, Paul. You made that mess, and you're the one who has to clean it up. So I'm not going to help you pay for it. As soon as I said that, Paul's face darkened. What the hell? We're married now. We share everything. If I'm struggling, shouldn't you help me out? I couldn't wrap my head around his logic. How did he even think this was okay? Before I could stop myself, the truth spilled out. You do realize what you're saying, right? It sounds like you want me to take on your debt so you can have it easier. I married you because I loved you, but it feels like you married me to help pay off your past mistakes. My vision blurred, and I felt warm tears spill onto my cheeks. Anger, hurt, disappointment. They all crashed over me at once, leaving me drowning in emotions I couldn't even name. Paul's eyes widened in alarm as he took in my tears. Whoa, Corinne, don't cry. That's not why I married you, I swear. I was scared you'd leave if you knew about all this. I love you, Corinne. That's real. That's always been real. For a brief moment, I hesitated. If I walked away now, I wouldn't have to carry his financial baggage. But then I thought about the years we spent together, the moments, good and bad, and some part of me didn't want to throw it all away. I need some time. I stepped out onto the balcony, gazing up at the night sky, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and frustration. 30 minutes passed in silence, and then I made my decision. I walked back inside, facing Paul, and told him exactly how I felt. I'm not divorcing you, but there will be conditions. If you didn't marry me just to dump your financial problems on me, then from now on, we're going to keep our finances separate. We'll split the bills. Whatever we each owe, we pay from our respective accounts. If you can agree to that, then we can stay married. Despite everything, I still loved Paul, even his flaws. The clumsy way he handled things, the way he sometimes lacked the right words. I loved him, all of him. That's why I wanted to give this marriage a real chance. Paul agreed to my terms without hesitation. If that means you'll stay with me, then I'll do it. Whatever it takes. I wanted to believe him. So we moved forward, together. But things are never that simple, are they? Corinne, I'm really short this month. I hate to ask, but can you lend me some money? 300. No, even just 100 would help. 3 months after his big confession, Paul was already asking me for money. I had seen this coming. Paul didn't have a high-paying job. No promotions, no career growth. He made less than I did. Meanwhile, I worked in sales. It was exhausting at times, but I had a gift for talking to people, and sales suited me perfectly. Some months were tough, but I consistently brought in over 10 grand in sales. My salary was a mix of base pay and commission, meaning the harder I worked, the more I earned. Last month, I closed a massive deal, and my commission check alone was over 5 grand. For a woman in her 20s, it was a damn good paycheck, but that's the nature of sales. You hustle, you earn. There were bad months too, of course, but when things were good, they were really good. And Paul knew that. That's why he picked this month to come asking for money. Paul's job didn't pay well, and his bonuses were practically non-existent. But just because I made more money didn't mean he had the right to rely on me. I wasn't going to let this become a pattern. No, Paul, we made an agreement. We keep our finances separate. I'm not paying your debts. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, with a long, heavy sigh, he finally spoke. You're useless. The moment those words left his mouth, I froze. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was just done. And since I wasn't responding, he kept going. You're making bank in sales, Corinne, but you won't even help your own husband? How selfish can you be? I swear, I have the worst taste in women. First my ex-wife, then the woman I cheated with, and now you? All of you are the same. Every single one of you only thinks about yourselves. If anyone in this room was selfish, it was Paul. But of course, he'd never see it that way. He always played the victim, never once holding himself accountable. That was the day I stopped seeing Paul as my husband. From then on, he was nothing more than a roommate. There were nights I lay awake, seriously considering divorce. But the idea of starting over felt exhausting, and more than anything, I didn't want to break the heart of the one person who had been happiest about my marriage. That, more than anything, was what held me back. That person was my father. My dad had raised me all on his own, a single father doing the best he could. Nowadays, single dads aren't uncommon, but back then it was pretty rare. In my dad's time, divorce wasn't just rare, it was almost shameful. But he never let that stop him from giving me the best life he could, no matter what anyone said. Forget what people say. If you believe in something, stand by it. And if you ever go down the wrong path, don't worry. I'll be there to stop you. One day I hope you'll meet someone who will love you the way you deserve. He used to say that all the time. When I married Paul, my dad was overjoyed. He thought I had finally found someone to take care of me with the same kind of love that he had for me. And because I didn't want to disappoint him, I stayed. I endured a lifeless marriage. Besides, it wasn't like I had any interest in finding someone new. Then, 5 years into our marriage, I had my son, the greatest joy of my life. That's when things really started to get messy. My son looked just like me, and for some reason, that seemed to bother Paul. At one point, "He's not mine." He actually said that, and for a while he ignored our son completely. But I had been raised with love, and I wasn't going to let my child miss out on the kind of childhood that I had growing up. I was tough when I needed to be, gentle when it mattered, but above all, I loved him with everything I had. 50 years passed in a blink. "Corinne, are you even listening to me?" Paul's voice yanked me out of my thoughts and back to reality. "I've got a work dinner this week, so don't bother making me anything." That was all he said before disappearing into his room. At first, Paul had relied on me because I was bringing him good money, but lately he had gotten a promotion, moved up to a manager position, and was making more money. With that came more business dinners and networking events, which conveniently meant he was gone most weekends. Not that it mattered to me. He had long since become just a roommate. His presence, or lack thereof, meant nothing. As far as I knew, he was keeping his promise not to cheat. Not that I cared anymore. By then, our finances had been separate for a while now. I didn't know how much he made or where his money went, and honestly, I didn't care. As long as the bills were paid and life functioned, that was enough. But lately, something happened that totally broke my heart. Something that had shaken me in a way I hadn't expected. My father passed away. My dad had sacrificed everything for me. He never spent money on himself, only on what I needed. Even his savings for retirement were barely enough. He had lived simply, modestly. So when he was hospitalized and I went back to his house to gather some things, I was shocked. His home barely looked lived in. The furniture was minimal, only the essentials. No luxuries, no indulgences. There wasn't a single thing for entertainment. No TV, no expensive hobbies. That was just like him. But there was one thing that caught my eye. His watch. He had worn it all the time, every single day. I remembered the moment he took it off before going into the hospital, the sadness in his eyes as he unclasped it from his wrist. And shortly after, he was gone. The doctors had told us from the beginning, stage 4 cancer, 6 months at most. For weeks, I was numb, but after 2 months since the memorial service, I finally started to feel like I could breathe again. My son had gotten into a top-tier private school on a baseball scholarship. He was living in the dorms now. Colleges were already scouting him. Between practice, school, and travel games, he barely had time to call home. I figured the next time I see him would be winter break. That was the thought in my head as I opened the drawer. And then, I screamed. "Where is it?" My head spun as I rifled through the drawer, but it wasn't there. Paul came out of his room, irritated, rubbing his face. "What's with all the noise?" "Jesus, Corinne, I was about to sleep. Can you not yell like a lunatic?" He glanced at my hands, at the mess of papers and trinkets I had pulled out, and his lips curled in amusement. "Oh, you're looking for the watch, huh?" I nodded slowly, my stomach twisting. "Yes, it's my father's only keepsake. It's missing." Dread settled in my gut, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Do you know where it is, Paul?" Paul smirked, this lazy, careless smirk. And then he said something that made my blood run cold. "My dad wanted it, so I gave it to him." A shockwave ripped through my body. My throat burned, a fire raising in my chest, but the words refused to come out. My heartbeat thundered so loudly, I could barely hear anything else. My breathing became shallow, uneven, my chest rising and falling too fast. Every vein in my body pulsed with white-hot rage, burning me from the inside out. And yet my mind was eerily calm when I spoke. "We're getting a divorce." Paul blinked, stunned, as if I had just spoken another language. He had never heard me say those words before, not once. And that's why for the first time in years, I saw something new on his face. Fear. Maybe it was because no matter how bad things got, I had never actually said the words before. Every time I felt like I was at my breaking point, I reminded myself of my father's words. "Life is unpredictable, Corinne. You never know if something bad today will lead to something good tomorrow. Things change. Hardships come, but they also go. When you're struggling, just remember that nothing stays the same forever." My dad had been an English teacher, always full of wisdom, always quoting literature and proverbs. Sometimes he'd say things that were way over my head, but one thing was always clear. He believed in resilience. He never said just endure it. Instead, he told me accept that life is unpredictable, and then take control of your own future. And in this moment, standing in front of Paul, feeling the full weight of my rage and clarity, I realized something. "I'm done, Paul. I'm not doing this anymore." Paul's face shifted from shock to something closer to panic. I put up with so much. I've forgiven things I never should have. But this is unforgivable. You finally crossed the one line you never should have. I turned my back to him, my decision made. The last thing I saw before walking away was Paul's expression, stunned, like a deer caught in headlights. I stormed down the dimly lit hallway, grabbing my phone, my wallet, my car keys, and walked straight out the door. But before I could even reach my car, his voice came crashing after me. "Wait, Corinne, stop!" I heard the chaotic shuffle of his feet, like he had stumbled, practically falling over himself as he ran after me. Okay, I screwed up. I get it. But please, don't leave. His hands lashed onto my arm, his grip desperate. His eyes were glassy, his face a mess of panic and regret. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I simply pried his fingers off my arm and stepped back. "Paul, it's too late for apologies. You took the one thing in this world I cherished the most. And now that I'm leaving, now that you realize what you've done, suddenly you're sorry? Oh, how convenient." Paul opened his mouth, but no words came out. Because he knew he had nothing to say that could change the situation. In the heavy silence, I took a step back, then another. I didn't even feel pity for him anymore. I got into my car and started the engine. Paul banged on the window shouting something, maybe a last-ditch attempt to make me stay, but I ignored him. I pressed my foot against the gas. In the side mirror, I saw him collapse onto his knees in the driveway, his shoulders shaking. He looked utterly defeated, like a man who had just realized he had lost everything. But that was his own doing. If ever there was a man who deserved to suffer the consequences of his own actions, it was Paul. As I drove away, I already knew where I was going. The first thing I had to do, the most important thing, was to get back my father's keepsake. "I'm sorry for dropping by unexpectedly." Paul's mother looked startled at my sudden visit, but the moment I explained why I was there, her face paled. She immediately called for his father. Judging from her reaction, they truly had no idea what had happened. Paul's father was profusely apologetic. "I am so sorry." There was no need for an innocent man to grovel like that, so I spoke gently. "It's all right. As long as I can have it back, that's all that matters." He still looked incredibly remorseful, but he wasted no time retrieving the watch, my father's only keepsake, and placing it carefully in my hands. The moment I felt his familiar weight in my palm, a small sigh of relief escaped me. I had no memories of my mother, who had passed away when I was very young. My father had been my only family. Having his watch back in my possession somehow washed away the anger, the grief, the storm of emotions I had been drowning in just moments ago. But in that emptiness left behind, something else began to surface. My feelings toward Paul, or lack thereof. For years, Paul had been nothing more than a roommate to me, just a man I shared space with. In front of his parents, in front of friends, I had played the role of the supportive wife. I had said all the right things, but I didn't need to pretend anymore. I took a deep breath and finally told his parents the truth. I'm divorcing Paul. His parents looked momentarily shocked, but then they met my eyes and saw that I meant every word. They didn't try to stop me. "I see. It's unfortunate, but we respect your decision, Corinne." They made it clear they weren't happy about it, but more than anything, they respected my choice. After leaving their home, I stopped by a cafe for lunch and sent a message to my son. I also sent an email to my boss, requesting some time off. My son's reply was short. "Got it." But my boss's response, "Take more time off." That was all he said. It hit me then how hard I had been pushing myself. Covering my son's tuition, managing everything on my own, I had barely stopped to breathe. Luckily, this was a slow season at work. My earnings for last month had carried over, and financially I was in a solid place. Even my coworkers and teammates supported my decision. And so for the first time in years, I took a break. I told myself I would use these few days wisely to set everything in motion. With that resolve, I headed home. A few hours later, Paul came home. The moment he saw me, tears streamed down his face as he practically threw himself at me. "Thank God, you came back. I called my parents, but they said you hadn't been there. I even called your office, but they told me you had taken the day off. I thought you were really gone, but you're here. You came back. I knew it. I knew you were different. You're not like other women. You understand me." The sheer audacity of it all left me speechless. Did he really think I came back for him? The only reason I was standing here had nothing to do with his relief or his delusions. In fact, for him, this was the beginning of a nightmare. And he was about to see that for himself. Silently, I pulled out the divorce papers and placed them on the table. Paul's entire body froze. What? What is this?" "You can see what it is. Divorce papers." I mean, yeah, I can see that, but I decided to lay everything out for him, the things I had learned today. "I was at your parents' house today. Your mother mentioned something interesting. You borrowed around $20,000 from her, didn't you?" Paul flinched. Hard. A minute ago, he had been looking at me with such conviction. Now he couldn't even meet my eyes. After a long, tense silence, he finally mumbled an explanation. "I was short on money." I knew you wouldn't lend me any, so I had to ask my mom. It's not like it's a big deal, right? She's family. No interest, no credit score hit, just a loan between mother and son. I did what I had to do. He said it like it was some kind of logical solution, but I wasn't buying a word of it. Paul, I've been in sales for years. I read people for a living. You barely contributed to our household expenses, and you never once paid for our son's education. So tell me, what exactly do you need that much money for? Where is it going, Paul? I stepped toward him. He stepped back. One step, then another. I kept pushing until his back was against the wall. His face twisted in panic. I didn't do anything wrong. What was that? The way you said that. Does that mean someone else is making you spend that money? His lips parted, then closed again. He had nothing to say. And then he realized there was no escape. No more lies, no more excuses. My ex-wife and kid, they keep asking for more money. The amount just keeps increasing. I'm paying nearly twice what we originally agreed on. I'm drowning, Corinne. As he spoke, he pulled out his bank statements. He shoved them toward me, like I was supposed to be sympathetic. The proof was right there. He had been paying $900 a month in the beginning, and now he was sending nearly $2,000. It didn't seem like a lie, but I needed to know. Why had the amount doubled? Are you sure this extra money is really for child support? Have you even asked where the money is going? What kind of school your kid is attending? What exactly are you paying for? High school tuition is practically free these days. And for a single mother, any tuition she does pay would be refunded if she applies for assistance. So tell me, Paul, why does she need double the money? Yet here you are sending her thousands more every month. Sounds suspicious, doesn't it? It was only then, when I spelled it out for him, that Paul finally seemed to understand. He had never been involved in our son's education, never cared to know the details, and now he was clueless about how tuition even worked. It was his own damn fault, but at the end of the day, it was his money, his debt. It had nothing to do with me. Whatever financial mess you have with your ex-wife, that's between you two. It's not my problem. I gave him a polite smile, and that's when I saw it, his face contorted with pure desperation. Corinne, please. What do I do? How do I get my money back? That's not my concern. If you think you're being scammed, sue her. Go civil, go criminal, whatever you want, but fighting this alone is going to be brutal. That means you'd need a lawyer. And let's be honest, Paul, do you even have the money for that? But hey, do whatever you want. It's got nothing to do with me. We're getting divorced after all. The moment I said it, his face crumpled. His lip trembled. He looked like he might actually break down and cry. But I felt nothing. Let me know when you've signed the divorce papers. That was the last thing I said before walking out the door. A few days later, Paul called me. I signed the divorce papers. But please don't file them yet. I had no idea why he'd even think to ask. And I didn't bother hiding my irritation over the phone. Wait, for what? It's nothing more than a piece of paper to you, Paul. Nothing about your life is going to change whether it's filed now or later. Whereas I have to deal with changing my name, updating all my records. But for you, nothing changes. So why stall? There was a long pause before he finally muttered his excuse. My company has a yearly family bonus. If the divorce is finalized now, I won't get the extra payout for having a wife and kid. So I'm begging you, just wait. I actually laughed, a dry, humorless chuckle. He couldn't be serious. A family bonus? God, you really are pathetic. That is not a reason to postpone a divorce. I want this over with. I want to move on. The idea of staying legally married even one more day so you can pocket a bonus makes me sick. Actually, I'm out right now. I'll stop by your office and pick up the papers. The panic in his voice was instant. Wait, Corinne, hold on, just calm down. Ignoring Paul's frantic pleas, I hung up the phone and drove straight to his office. When I arrived, Paul was already there, waiting in the lobby. His face had lost all color, and he stammered out excuses the moment he saw me. Wait, I don't have them with me right now. Then fill them out right here, right now. I figured you'd pull something like this, so I brought extra copies. All you have to do is sign your part. So go ahead, Paul. Sign. With coworkers passing by, Paul had no choice but to sign. His hands shook slightly as he scribbled his name. Then his eyes landed on the witness section. His parents' signatures were already there. The realization hit him like a brick to the face. His own parents had already accepted the end of our marriage before he did. Wait, my parents signed this? That's right. They said they respect my decision. Paul's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. The last people he could have turned to, his own parents, had already sided with me. And in this moment, Paul lost everything. And just like that, Paul and I were officially divorced. Strangers, once again. Honestly, we had been living as just roommates for so long that nothing felt different. The only real change? I had to cover the electric and water bills now, which Paul used to pay for. A small price to pay for my freedom. But I was doing just fine. I was still leading in sales, still earning high commissions. Covering a couple of extra bills didn't even faze me. Paul, on the other hand, was in trouble. He had already borrowed money from his parents, was drowning in debt, and now, for the first time in years, he had to cover all his own expenses. That's how it should have been. But for Paul, it was the beginning of his own personal hell. His parents cut him off after this. They were done with him, just like I was. He tried to get back the extra money he had been sending his ex-wife, but she had no intention of giving it back. They fought for months, and in the end he lost. Paul was finally paying the price for every bad decision he had ever made. And honestly, he had no one to blame but himself. If ever there was a man who embodied karma, it was him. And for the rest of his life, Paul will remain trapped in the quicksand of his own making, clawing for a way out, but never quite reaching solid ground. Years have passed since then. For the moment I made the decision to divorce Paul, my life took on a kind of peace I never knew I needed. I had no idea how liberating true freedom could be. My career was thriving, my personal life was fulfilling, and most of all, I was finally living a life where no one could take advantage of me. Meanwhile, Paul was still suffering. Word was that he had bounced from job to job, buried himself in more debt, and with each passing year found himself more and more alone. His friends abandoned him. His family cut ties, and eventually even his colleagues lost trust in him. Last I heard, he was living alone in a dingy apartment, barely scraping by. But honestly, that was exactly the ending he deserved. Whatever happens to him now is no longer my concern. More importantly, I have a life to live, a future to embrace. My son went on to college, balancing baseball with his studies and education. He was slowly shaping his dream of becoming a teacher. He once told me he wanted to be like his grandfather, someone who could guide others, shape minds, and have a lasting impact. When he said that, I felt like my father must have been smiling down on us. As for me, I had finally learned to enjoy the present, to savor every moment. I had escaped a loveless marriage and found myself again. Sometimes I feel a sense of solitude, but it's never a sad thing. If anything, this quiet life is exactly what I always wanted. I go where I want, do what I love, and surround myself only with people who matter. That's what life is supposed to be, isn't it? Doing what you love, living without regret. Dad, here's to a good life. I raised a glass of whiskey in the direction of my father's old home, a silent tribute. For the first time in years, I'm finally living. I don't look back anymore. I keep moving forward, because from now on, my life belongs to me.